Hello, everybody. I'm Jack Fink, Ion Politics reporter at CBS News Texas, and we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. And as you know, the national election, November 5th, is right around the corner. And so we want to talk about that. And we are coming to you today from the great El Ranchito restaurant in Oak Cliff, the heart of the Latino community, right on Jefferson Boulevard in Dallas. And I've got a great panel of three people to talk about this. Former Republican State Representative Jason Villalba, who's now an independent and also chairman of the board of the Texas Hispanic Policy Foundation. Tina Aviles, who is a former Dallas County Republican Party vice chair and now a precinct chair for the Dallas County Republicans, and also Democratic State Representative Ana Maria Ramos of Dallas, who's now running for Texas House Speaker. So welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's talk about this. I was reading that there are more than 36 million Latinos nationwide who are eligible to vote this year. And so turnout is always important. So are Latinos going to turn out? Representative Ramos, we'll start with you.
I believe they will, and I think there has been a resurgence of excitement in the current presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, being a daughter of immigrants, and Latinos can really relate to that. And all the calls that I've been in, Latinos for Harris, people are really, really excited, and the young folk are really excited. So Latinos have a very young population, and so I think it's a mixture of, it's the perfect time, the perfect place right now for Latinos to really come out and really support our presidential candidate, which is Kamala Harris. And so I'm really excited about it.
Tina.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think when you look at the growing population, the expectation is that Latinos are going to comprise about 15% of the vote nationally, and that's huge. But I think the other key part to the equation is going to be that we have a predominant number of young people in the Latino community that are registered and eligible and likely to turn out to vote. And the current estimate that I'm seeing is that 1 in 4 voters nationally in this Latino group are going to be first-time voters. So I think that is going to be key.
And Jason.
For so many years, we've been talking about the Latino population as the sleeping giant. What we've seen in the last few cycles is the sleeping giant is awake, and they're starting to vote in large numbers, in numbers that are decisive. In Texas, as Tina and the representative pointed out, we have a really strong and robust movement among young Latinos to come out to the polls. They were activated in the last few cycles, and we're seeing more and more intensity from that group. And as Hispanics start to really understand their impact in a state like Texas or in all of the other states around the country where their vote will be decisive, they realize that their vote matters, and that's what brings people out to the polls.
I mean, historically, though, young people say they're going to vote, but then you don't see them actually show up. Do you think it's going to be different this time? Tina, we'll start with you on that question.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a little bit of difference now this time because I think, one, they're typically considered young people under 35, and we have a whole class, several classes now actually, of college graduates who have they've done the work, they've got the degree, and they've gone out and tried and lived these past 3.5 years under a Biden economy that really slowed them down and did not allow them to achieve the American dream that they thought that they were on the track for. And so I think we're going to see some more turnout, and I think that's going to play into the fact when we have first-time Latino voters that are younger.
Jason, what do you think of that issue as far as young people really going out and voting?
There's no question that historically, young voters are very excitable at the beginning of the campaigns, and by the end, when voting really starts to happen, they don't show up. A number of politicians who've relied on the young vote were sorely disappointed. Beto O'Rourke is a great example, right? He had registered so many young people, but they weren't able to actually vote in the last moment. There's a difference this time, though, and I think what's happening is there are animating forces among young people and a new way to communicate with young people that we just have never seen before. In the old days with the television and the flyers in the mail, that's the way that we campaign to our moms and our dads. Young people today are engaging on social media like TikTok and YouTube and all of these different influencers. And that is bringing excitement to this community, young people, and that's bringing them to the polls. I think you are going to see them activated. I think you are going to see them interested in the kinds of kitchen table issues that Tina mentions. And I think it's going to be the first time we see a real movement of young people to come out and vote in more meaningful numbers than we've seen in the past.
Representative Ramos.
Well, I agree 100%. In terms of the communication, where they're at right now, historically, what we've seen is we haven't had the ability to communicate as well as we have now through social media. And we know statistically, Latinos don't necessarily use the computer for internet access, they use their phones. And so they're constantly connected. And so there are greater, more creative ways to connect and to really figure out what the issues are. And I think one of the best gifts is the Republican candidate, Donald Trump, right? And his Project 2025 and his anti-immigrant rhetoric. And he is targeting Latino communities nationwide with the Operation Wetback, the 2.0 Operation Wetback, wanting to sweep our communities and attack our families. Like these children, these young adults, they know what's happening. And it's beautiful when you communicate with them, because not only Hispanics, right, but children of immigrants, whether they're Muslim, whether they're whatever country they're from, they're all getting connected and energized in this movement. So I'm really excited and looking forward to it. And I speak with young folk all the time. And they, I think as older people, we don't appreciate the level of connectivity, but knowledge that they have of what's really going on. We've underestimated them for so long, and I think that we're really going to see a great turnout this cycle.
So the phone is the great equalizer as
for
far
sure.
as communicating and access, and you're out there on the ballot.
Oh, yes.
So you really have to work that.
Yes, I do, and it's just amazing, and I'm still trying to figure out the whole social media. I didn't grow up with that, and it is just amazing. Not in my first cycle when I ran in 2018, I accidentally did a Snapchat thinking I'm gonna, penetrate that social media aspect, and my kids were like, "Mom, why did you do that?" My friends saw it and they're making fun of me, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I had to be careful and kind of scale back a little bit, but the message is getting out, and the young adults are really watching. They're paying attention and they know what's happening. We can't underestimate them because they know what's happening. I speak to young adults all the time. They are highly impressive, and it's also very inspirational because they're going to make the changes that we've been trying to make. They are going to put it in action.
So let me ask you, because you brought up a point there about former President Donald Trump, but we've also seen inroads that the Republicans have made specifically in South Texas. And Jason, your firm, the Texas Hispanic Policy Foundation, you were talking a little bit about your poll, but talk to me about this, and I'll get everybody's input, about have Republicans made serious inroads in South Texas and perhaps other parts of the state?
We've certainly seen some trends in South Texas and really around the country where Hispanics are no longer beholden to one party. As we see generations 1, 2, and 3 really grow up within the electoral system, they are moving much more like the general electorate than, say, Hispanics of the past. And so there is that slight movement. This started in Texas in 2016, where more Hispanics voted for Trump than had voted for other Republicans who had run in Texas. For instance, Mitt Romney was like at a 32, whereas Trump was able to get like a 40%. So from that period of time, he was able to increase that number. I think it speaks to some of the issues that Tina was speaking to, right? Republicans came into the state of Texas and they said, we're going to focus on jobs, and we're going to focus on making sure that we have an oil and gas economy, and we're going to make sure that we protect the first responders, policemen. Whereas on the other side of that coin, you saw some green economy type language, some ban the blue or the defund the police, and those messages did not resonate in South Texas. You saw that movement, and that's continued. Mike Madrid wrote a wonderful book called The Latino Century that talks about this movement, and essentially the thesis is, as Hispanics grow into the culture from first generation immigrant, second and third and fourth, they're more likely to vote like the general electorate than like a people of color like we might see in the African American community that have a unique history in the United States.
Tina.
Yeah, well, I think that what we're seeing is definitely a reflection of the growth and the change that you see. When you do get to that second and third generation, they vote like the general electorate, as Jason was saying. And I think of my children. So I have 7 children, 4 adult children, and 3 younger children. I'm getting there. But when you talk to them, and when I talk to their friends, and when I see with where they're going, they're looking at the same kitchen table issues that they saw, and what we see too is the generational gap, right? Because when these kids are sitting down with their abuelos at the table on Sunday, and they're talking, I've seen my Dominican mother-in-law, my Puerto Rican father-in-law. Since 2014, they switched and they began voting Republican because they were talking with their grandkids. And we see this overwhelming, not overwhelming, but a slow moving wave of conservatism rising amongst young people. And I think that is where, when you take this new kind of conservatism that's blooming amongst the young people, mix it with the policies and how they've seen their parents struggle through, or they themselves are struggling through the economic policies of a Biden-Harris administration that's been in charge of things like the economy and the border and immigration for these past 3.5 years. And they compare that to what was going on and how they were living under a Trump administration. I think we're going to see a continued shift. I don't think the wave is going to turn around. It's not going to be a blue wave amongst Latinos. It's going to continue to be a red wave amongst Latinos, starting with the young.
Let me qualify that. One point is Latinos historically, in Texas at least, do not vote based on the party. They don't vote on the color of the jersey, Republican or Democrat. They generally vote on who they believe can provide the best opportunities for them going forward, be it Republican or Democrat. Recently in Texas, the perception was the Republicans were doing a better job on the kitchen table issues. That trend, while it was pronounced in 2016 and 2020, actually ebbed in 2022. So we see it go backwards. Whether or not there'll be a red wave or a blue wave, I think it's to be seen. But make no mistake, Hispanics in Texas can be won by either party. Either party has the opportunity, if they present the right issues and they present the right opportunities, to win that vote. So the Hispanics are in no one's camp. They're open to either party that can provide opportunities for them.
Well, I love Jason's optimism. I think we're going to firmly see that the majority of the Latino vote will go to the Democrat. But I think that what we're seeing is this continual growing and within the community. But I love the optimism. I'd love to see that happen.
And Representative Ramos, I mean, as far as the kitchen table issues are concerned, when you're having conversations with Latino voters, young, old, et cetera, how often does this come up? Is this a central theme that you're finding as far as the concerns are?
Is what essential?
The fact of the kitchen table issues, the inflation, the economy, concerns perhaps also about the border.
Yes, I think the border, it's not really one of the top issues. Immigration is not really one of the top issues Latinos really talk about. It is the economy, it is the jobs, it is the opportunity. Now, whether they're better today than they were 4 years ago, 4 years ago, you couldn't visit your grandmother. She was dying in a nursing home under the Trump administration. 4 years ago, millions of people were dying under the Trump administration. I mean, the economy was, to hell 4 years ago, prior to the Biden administration coming in. We're having to crawl ourselves out of that. It's difficult, and people do know that. But a lot of people forget that when you listen to all the rhetoric coming from the other side. But the truth is, where we were 4 years ago to today, remember, in 2020, we were dying. Our neighbors were dying. Our family members were dying, and there was no recourse. There was really no way out until we elected somebody who really helped us get out of that. But families are really concerned about not only the economy, but education, whether their children will be educated, whether the state, the government will invest in their children's education. And the communities that I speak to, they're very, when you talk to an immigrant family, the hope, the American dream lies in their child. It lies in the child in the future that they came to this country for. They came to this country so that they can invest in their child and so that their child can lift up the family. But when we attack education, when we attack public education, where the majority of students in public education in Texas are Latino, I mean, what we see our party here in Texas trying to do now is dismantle the public education system. People are having those conversations. They understand when there is an aim, and not only at the Texas level, but a part of Trump's Project 2025, is to dismantle public education that is directly targeted to Latino families and communities, especially in the state of Texas. So 5.5 million students in public schools in the state of Texas, 53% of those are Latinos. 53% of those are Latinos. These are children of families who their American dream lies in that child. And we're saying we are no longer going to invest in that child. You do not matter. Well, that is just generations of dismissing generations and really attacking generations of families that really came to work and to invest. And we know these people are the ones who are the backbone of our economy. So it's very important that we continue to emphasize the importance, but families understand this. They understand education. They came to this country to work and to educate their children. And we have to make those opportunities robust for these communities.
And Representative Ramos is so right. When we test this, and we test it every time we do a poll, what are the top issues that resonate with Latinos? Oh, it's always education. Then after that, the economy and jobs. After that, insurance, healthcare. And then at a distant fourth or fifth will be the immigration, border security. They care most about, again, opportunities, kitchen table issues like education. That is a critically important issue that if you're a political party on one side or the other, that's an issue that resonates with Latinos.
And that's because the Hispanic families and all Latinos, we are a people of hope. And we thrive because we have hope in a better future. Everything that I worked for, everything that my mother and father worked for was their hope so that I could do better than they. Everything I worked for so that my children can do better than I do. And so there is a hope that is ingrained, and that hope is based in education. And one of the biggest things that we're seeing rising up here in Texas is that hope lies in opening up and freeing the education and freeing parents to do what's best for their children when it comes to education, and opening up things like educational savings accounts where we can see, because we have data from states like Florida and how that made a difference in the Hispanic population and from other states, but we're opening up and allowing freedom of educational choice so that students can get educated in the way that works best for them, so that we can have no more shortages of jobs, maybe the trades, so that we have more of a balance, because people are doing what's best for the parents are able to choose and able to extend their rights to put that hope in their children through education. That's a key in Texas.
Well, I'd like to add the education savings account. So we understand that a lot of these public school students are children without status, and that is, that's a fact. Now, Flyer v. Doe in the 1980s was the state of Texas going to the Supreme Court to try to deny these children education. And one of the arguments was they're not taxpayers. And the Supreme Court justice said, well, if an undocumented person's house was on fire, would you not call the fire department to put out that fire? And that's taxpayer funded, and of course we would. And so the Supreme Court justice said, is not a child more important than a piece of property to invest in? And so when you look at that, when you talk about education, the truth is an education savings account, you need to have a social security number to even access one of those. And 77% of the economically disenfranchised children in the public school system in the state of Texas are Latino. So that is not a path, it's a bridge that's going to be accessible to them. We know that to be true. And so the fact is, what is going to be left behind are underfunded public schools when they're over-serving our Latino and Latino students. And I think about 50% of those disadvantaged or special needs children are also Latino. So the constitutional protections to protect disabled people will not be accessible once again to these individuals in the public schools. In the private schools, they'll send them back to the public schools.
Well, won't that depend on the legislation that's actually crafted? Because we've seen so many different variations of the bill last time. We don't know what is going to be included this time.
I think Representative Ramos and Tina have really crystallized the number one issue before the Texas legislature beginning in January of 2025, right? This is the number one agenda item for Governor Abbott, and it's one of the number one issues for the Democrat caucus as well, to go back and forth on this. I think Tina and Representative Ramos have really articulated well each of the positions. You know, the one issue that will come to the forefront, especially with Latinos, because remember, Latinos are generally a matriarchal construct. The family's big decisions around this are decided by mama, not by papa necessarily. Papa's doing his work, right? But you see a lot of these questions come, and are they willing to accept that public tax dollars that would go to their schools be sent to other people for an $8,000 stipend? Or do they want to have that choice that Tina talks about to take that $8,000 and send their kids to a local Catholic school, right? And that is where the issue that's what it boils down to. Where will Latino families land on that question? It's a really good question, and one that, look, there's going to be a lot of money spent by the legislature to push this idea that it's choice, but then there'll be a lot of fight on the other side saying, hey, it's tax dollars for subsidies for wealthy folks in North Dallas to send their kids to Green Hill, right? And I think those are the issues that are really going to boil to the surface.
What I find very interesting and, used to be, and I think you touched on this earlier in our conversation, and that is that, to say what is the Latino community is kind of ridiculous, right? Because what we've seen now is that it is so diverse in thought, in religious beliefs, in just age groups, where their families are from. It's just, just go down the list. And so I'm wondering, isn't that, that's why it's kind of hard to sandwich, right?
Again, we test this as well, right? It's cliche now to say that the Hispanic population is not a monolith. Everyone knows that, right? But what is it? What is it that unifies us as a people? And there are some themes that recur. Tina pointed to one earlier, and I think Representative Ramos did as well. We are very familial, right? Our family units, our structure is built around the family unit, around making sure that the second and third generation behind us and the generation ahead of us are taken care of. Often we live in the same homes, right? Where grandma and grandchild are living under the same roof. And we have a really deep emphasis on the future, on hope. And I think those are things that are unifying about Latinos as well. We are also very hardworking, right? You don't see a lot of folks on the roofs in August tapping plywood in that don't look like us, right? And it's because we are the hardest working people in the country, right? Either documented or undocumented, we're the workers. We're the ones that are doing all the work that you probably don't see. This restaurant, retail, hospitality, that's another theme that drives us together. And so, hardworking people that care about the family, you can guess that the way to win them politically is to give them opportunities, give them hope, give them the ability to make their lives better for them and their families and their children.
Representative.
Oh, I agree 100%. Giving them hope and not vilifying this community, which we've heard over and over with the Trump administration. It's a vilification of these hardworking people who come to lift their families, but at the same time are lifting in the economy. Texas has the second largest Latino economy in the country. So it is very important that we continue to invest in this community and not overlook them or let that be an afterthought. We contribute in many ways in this economy, wherever you go, whether it is a Chinese restaurant, there are Latinos in the back, whether it is a fancy hotel, there are Latinos doing the beds. It's Latinos are everywhere. They are the backbone of this economy. And many times we have a shadow community that we need to uplift, and the children more than anything are the future, right? And so we have to continue to invest in them. But as you talked about familial and the mother and the matriarch, another way you're not gonna win Latinos over is to attack a woman's right. Latina women I am Catholic, and traditionally we've looked at the numbers and one-issue voters and all that good stuff. But the truth is, Latinas support the right to choose. They support their pro-choice candidates. And so it's very important that we continue to really emphasize that, but also appreciate that, yes, we have all of these issues are very important to us, but also in addition to the economy, in addition to education, is my right to choose, because that is my family economy. When I have a right to choose, I get to decide if I'm going, what I'm going to do with my own family economy. And sometimes it is connected to whether I'm going to be able to pay the rent or not next month. And so those are all conversations that at the granular level we are having with these communities. But I think you have to be part of the community to really understand and appreciate the dialogue when we're having in the kitchen table at these many different households.
Tina.
Well, and just to that end, I mean, that is where, as a staunchly I staunchly support life and love life, and I'm a Protestant, not a Catholic, and so there is a much larger portion of the Latino community that loves life and is ready to support life, and through things like adoption. I'm the mother of 3 adopted children, and so we step up. And we do the work, and that's how we choose and support life. We have pregnancy centers. We are supportive out there in the Capitol when it comes time to have heartbeat laws or sonogram laws. And those things have passed in Texas because of the support in the community that there is for them.
In the Latino community.
In the Latino community, yeah.
Going back to our poll, because we polled this issue as well. And it's interesting right here, right? We've got 2 Latinas who care very strongly about this issue, and yet, again, we're proving your point. We're not a monolith. We've got someone who cares a great deal about life and someone who cares a great deal about women's choice. What we found was that as the Hispanic population becomes more evangelical, the evangelical Latinos who go to the larger, mega churches and who are becoming more evangelical, they tend to be more pro-life than the classic understanding of where we come from a religion. Everybody used to think, oh, all Hispanics are Catholic. Actually, when you look at Hispanics today, the Catholics are largely more pro-choice than they are pro-life, whereas the evangelicals that tend to move that way. Generally, Hispanics are going to be more pro-choice than they are life. But there's one caveat. I'm pro-life, for instance, but I'm pro-life with common sense exceptions, right? Rape, incest, life of the mother, severe fetal abnormality. Now that kind of nuance is lost when we talk about dichotomies of this pro-life and pro-choice. But really, most Latinos stand on that issue. If you can throw in those exceptions for those kinds of things, then you'll find that more Latinos feel strongly about that than any other position on the outside.
And my last question to you is, because I'm listening to all, obviously the different opinions as far as Democrat versus Republican, but because the Latino community, you can't pigeonhole them in any particular camp. The fact that this presidential race is so close right now, when you look at the battleground states, I mean, the fact that perhaps a higher share of Latinos vote for former President Trump, let's just say, that could be a difference maker, right? I mean, Tina, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what Jason said earlier. It's the sleeping giant. Latinos are feeling their power and are waking up to, look, Latinos have, from all different communities, all across the board, let's say a complicated relationship with government and elections. And so, we're seeing this movement, this coming together and this waking up to our power and grasping it. And that's why you're seeing more young people. You're seeing voter registration increase. You're seeing representation within different levels of government grow for Latinos. I'm glad to see that. And there's just this movement that's, again, we're seeing these things flow together, and we're on the cusp of being the decision makers. I am really, really interested to see how the results turn out after this election, because I think we will see Latinos really finally take the horns and be the drivers of future elections. I don't think we're quite there yet, and I think they would agree, but this could be the one, and that would be fun to see.
Representative Ramos.
Well, it's no surprise. I think parties haven't invested as much resources in the Latino community because, for whatever reason, right? The votes have been taken for granted on both sides. And I think, there is so much opportunity, but the beauty of it is we are young, once again, a very young community. The majority of our population is under the age of 30 or under the age of 30, in that age range. And so I do believe that these individuals are going to come out and vote for the Democratic candidate. I think they understand, once again, maybe the older population is leaning more conservative and Republican, but the majority of our population is not the older part of our population, right? And so they understand what is being said about them. They understand what they stand to lose with a Trump administration. They understand what happened 4 years ago, and things were not that great. And they want some stability. They want some predictability. And that is what Kamala Harris has to offer.
Jason will give you the last word.
The power of the Latino vote cannot be overstated. I mean, if you look at states like Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, California, Texas, Florida, all these states are deeply impacted by Hispanic votes. So most of those I named are swing states. Some aren't. Texas and California are not. But in these swing states, the Hispanic vote will absolutely make the difference and will tip the scale one way or the other. When you're talking about a race that's down to 2, 3, 4 points, if you can bring Latinos out and vote in meaningful numbers, you tip the balance one way or the other. Now, if Representative Ramos's theory of the case is correct, they carry the day for Kamala, right? But if Tina is correct, then it goes the other direction. What I think is in this cycle, we are going to see the impactful decisiveness of the Latino voter, not only in those states, but even in Texas, where, for instance, in this Senate race that we're looking at with Ted Cruz and Colin Allred, I think Hispanics are going to make a tremendous difference in that race and bring that delta between what Beto was able to do at 2.6% even closer for Colin, if not able to come over the top and win that race statewide.
Well, we certainly will see.
And may I add, voter suppression is real. To the Latino voters who are watching this, if we didn't have the power that we know we have based on studies and our population, Latino interests, they wouldn't pass these voter suppression laws in states like Texas. They wouldn't pass this extreme gerrymandering in states like Texas. The fact is, we do have a lot of power. They try to silence our power over and over through different legislation, but we got to fight that back. And the way we fight back is by registering to vote and getting out there. You don't need to know everything about the ballot. You just got to be part of the process. Civic engagement is what's going to make this country better, what's going to put Texas on the right path. Civic engagement, getting out there, registering to vote, bringing all your abuelitas. I used to take my grandmother to go vote every cycle. She didn't speak any English, but I would take her to go vote with me and explain to her in Spanish her ballot. That's the beauty of our democracy. That's the beauty of our culture, our community. We got to keep doing it, and that is how we're going to get on the right path in the state of Texas.
Voter ID laws are absolutely critical to maintaining elections with integrity, and that is what especially after what we've been through as a country through recent elections. We need to restore confidence in our electoral system, and that's where voter ID laws are crucial and play a key role, and that is absolutely a way forward to restore public confidence in our election system.
Tina Aviles, Representative Ana Maria Ramos, former State Representative Jason Villalba, thank you all so much. This was a great conversation for Hispanic Heritage Month and for our upcoming election. We really appreciate it. I'm Jack Fink, Ion Politics reporter at CBS News Texas. Thank you for joining us as well. Have a great day.